Don't forget to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to stay updated with our latest stories. Eric Clapton, who is often called one of the best musicians of all time, had a life full of both huge musical success and deep personal problems. His struggles with drug and alcohol abuse, his troubled relationship with Pattie Boyd, and the tragic death of his son Connor paint a picture of a man who went through the worst and tried to find redemption through his art. In the 1960s, when things were exciting and unstable, Eric Clapton was becoming one of rock's biggest stars. With bands like the Yardbirds and Cream, and later with his solo work, he was known for his amazing guitar skills and soulful blues influences. But he soon learned that fame was both good and bad. Clapton was swept up in the excesses of the rock and roll lifestyle, a world where experimentation wasn't just encouraged, it was expected. It was a time when drugs and alcohol seemed as intrinsic to the scene as the music itself, and for Clapton, the allure of an escape from the mounting pressures was too powerful to resist at first. Alcohol provided that escape, numbing the anxieties and insecurities that plagued him despite his success, but as his fame grew, so did the demands and pressures, and the temporary solace alcohol offered was no longer enough. As the years passed, the simple thrill of a drink to unwind became an insatiable craving that dominated his life. Alcohol's pull soon led him down a darker path, heroin, a drug that promised a deeper, more complete escape for Clapton. Heroin became more than just a coping mechanism, it became an all-consuming obsession. His addiction was so profound that he reportedly spent $16,000 a week on heroin, a staggering sum even by rockstar standards. The drug isolated him from his friends, family and bandmates, building an invisible but unbreakable wall around him. He was unreachable, trapped in a prison of his own making. As his dependency deepened, his musical abilities began to suffer. Clapton, once a revered guitarist capable of electrifying audiences, now finds himself struggling to perform. His once legendary presence on stage dimmed, his passion dulled by the haze of drugs. He missed shows, botched performances and lost the respect of those who once admired his work. His career, once a beacon of promise, seemed destined for a tragic end. Friends and fellow musicians watched in helpless despair as Clapton's addiction spiraled out of control, their concerns growing with each failed concert and missed opportunity. The man who had captivated audiences with his soulful playing was fading, and there seemed to be no way to reach him. Then in 1971 came the breaking point. Clapton's performance at a London concert was so bad that his friends and family had to step in and try to save the man they admired and loved. The intervention was raw and painful, with friends confronting him about how his addiction had hurt his life, career, and relationships. Their words cut through the fog of addiction, and for the first time, Clapton saw how bad things were getting. His loved ones begged him to get help, and with their support, Clapton started treatment. Although it marked a significant milestone, Clapton's struggle with heroin continued. He quickly fell back into alcohol. When Clapton wasn't ready to face life's challenges without heroin, he turned to drinking. Alcohol filled the void left by heroin and became a new addiction that was just as destructive. This time, Clapton's addiction was even more sneaky, seeping into every part of his life and hurting his relationships and career even more. Clapton may have escaped heroin's grasp, but his battle with addiction was far from over. The road to recovery was winding and dangerous, and it would test all of his strength and resilience as he fought his addiction. Eric Clapton's personal life was rife with emotions, desires, and heartbreaks. While he was building his reputation as a guitar god, Clapton was dealing with a love that was so strong it almost tore him apart. He was deeply in love with Pattie Boyd, who was married to his close friend and famous Beatle George Harrison. Pattie wasn't just a lovely woman, she was his muse, an unattainable dream, and a living embodiment of everything he couldn't have. His love for her burned through his music, most famously in the 1970 song Isla, which is filled with raw longing and desperation. Isla was Clapton's plea, a way to turn his heartbreak and frustration into something lasting. But for years, Pattie didn't return his love, a painful reminder of the happiness that was just out of reach. In 1979, Pattie divorced Harrison. By that time, Patty's marriage to George had experienced significant challenges, and after years of unhappiness, she finally turned to Clapton. They got married, but the fairy tale romance Clapton had imagined quickly turned into a much darker reality. Clapton's drinking was getting worse, and his marriage to Patty was overshadowed by his wild behavior. It gave him the same intensity that had driven him to write. Isla became an unpredictable and sometimes scary force in their lives. Clapton was no longer just a loving boyfriend, he was an addict who was unpredictable, unreliable, and often impossible to reach. The man who had once promised her the world was now lost in his darkness, leaving Patty to wonder if the man she'd fallen in love with was too bad to save. Their relationship transformed into a heartbreaking tale filled with issues that tested Patty's resolve. Clapton's alcoholism transformed him into a stranger, prone to sudden outbursts of anger and recklessness, a man who oscillated between showing love and neglect for Patty. She would later discuss times when he was verbally and physically abusive, remembering how painful it was to live with someone whose love for her seemed less important than his addiction. His drinking made him feel even worse about himself, which led to jealous charges. He experienced mood changes and, worst of all, cheated on her with someone else. The man who used to worship her was no longer the same person she recognized. His self-destructive behavior left scars that time alone couldn't heal. Clapton's affairs were another source of pain for Patty. Each affair eroded the trust and love Patty had worked so hard to build. One affair led to the birth of his son, Connor, with Italian model Lori Delanto in 1986. For Patty, this betrayal deeply wounded her, leaving no apology able to mend the open wound. Clapton's betrayal wasn't just a result of his addiction, it was a reminder of the deep-seated flaws that his addiction had exacerbated. It showed how emotionally distant they had become by 1988. After years of trying to keep their marriage together, Patty had finally given up. She filed for divorce, citing his alcoholism and infidelity as the final straws in a marriage that had been battered beyond repair for Clapton. Losing Patty was a crushing blow, but at the time he was too lost in his addiction to fully grasp the gravity of his actions. The woman he had once seen as his salvation was gone, leaving him to confront the ruin he had made of their relationship. Their love story, which had started with such passion, had become a cautionary tale, a reminder of how addiction can twist love into something unrecognizable and of how even the deepest bonds can be shattered by unaddressed demons. And yet even after all the heartbreak, Clapton's memories of Patty would haunt him, a constant reminder of the love he had squandered in pursuit of temporary relief from his own pain. In 1991 Clapton faced an unimaginable tragedy. His 4-year-old son, Connor, whom he had with Italian model Lori Delanto, died after falling from the 53rd floor window of a New York City apartment. The loss devastated Clapton, plunging him into profound grief. In the aftermath, he wrote Tears in Heaven, a poignant song that expressed his sorrow and longing. This period became a turning point for Clapton. The pain of losing Connor compelled him to confront his addictions head-on. He sought treatment and embraced sobriety, realizing that to honor his son's memory, he needed to change his life. Embracing sobriety was a challenging journey for Clapton. He immersed himself in his music, channeling his emotions into his art. In 1998 he founded the Crossroads Center in Antigua, a rehabilitation facility aimed at helping others overcome addiction. This endeavor was a testament to his commitment to sobriety and his desire to assist others facing similar struggles. Clapton's songs during this time showed how he was growing as a person. Albums like Pilgrim, 1998, showed a more mature and introspective artist who had faced his demons and come out on the other side with a new sense of purpose. Today, Eric Clapton doesn't shy away from talking about his darkest hours. Time and recovery have allowed him to look back with a mix of regret, pain, and acceptance. He speaks openly about the suffering his addictions caused those closest to him and the bad decisions he made along the way. He doesn't try to hide the truth. He knows that his actions left deep scars on others, most heartbreakingly on Patty Boyd, the woman he loved but ended up hurting. Clapton is honest about the guilt he feels for the years he lost to addiction, for the moments he gave up for his cravings, and for the memories he missed because he was too drunk to live them. Clapton's journey has made him painfully aware of how addiction hurts not only the addict but also everyone who cares about them. Despite this, he speaks passionately about the possibility of forgiveness and redemption. His message is one of hope, not just for himself but for others who are struggling. For Clapton, forgiveness isn't just about asking others to forgive him, it's also about forgiving himself, which took him years to do. He believes that people can change and that life gives us a chance to fix even the most broken relationships. Although Clapton can't change the past, he has learned that he can use his story to show people who feel trapped that it is possible to rise from the ruins of one's own making. Clapton's story is a powerful testament to resilience. Despite the depths of his despair and the destruction his addiction caused, he has found a way back to himself. He continues to share his music and story, finding purpose in helping others navigate the dark waters of addiction through his advocacy work and his music. Because of his own terrible experiences, Clapton has become a voice for people who feel like they have no one to talk to about their addiction. Clapton feels a duty to help others because of his journey, which he does with quiet humility and a profound understanding of the battles that are still going on for so many. When he thinks about his life, he says that music saved him. For him, music wasn't just a job or a talent, it was a lifeline in his darkest moments. Eric Clapton used songwriting and the guitar to express his pain and feelings that he could never put into words. He used music to deal with his grief and longing for peace. Songs like "Tears in Heaven," which he wrote after the tragic death of his son Connor, helped him face his grief and start to heal. For Clapton, music was a way to forgive, express his grief, seek redemption, and ultimately find some measure of inner peace. Clapton's story shows the unbreakable strength of the human spirit. Through immense talent, terrible loss, and a never-ending search for redemption, he created a legacy that goes far beyond his music. Today, his life is a powerful story of hope that serves as a reminder that even in the midst of life's greatest challenges, there is always hope. Healing is always possible. For Clapton, redemption is not a goal but a journey that he continues to take with courage, resilience, and a quiet determination to make peace with his past. By telling his story, he helps others find strength in their struggles, ask for forgiveness, and maybe most importantly, believe that even the most broken lives can find a way back to wholeness.